Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of the live video call-in show where sneakerheads, members of Rob Schuh's channel, get to call in. Yes, I just referred to myself in the third person. I'm taking a cue from Deebo's book. If he can do it, I can do it, right? Maybe not. Maybe Deebo has a leg up on me. Maybe he has a little more room for calling himself by the third person. Anyway, it's going to be a Deebo show. You know it is. That's what the news is all about right now. This is going to be a show talking about what you want to talk about, the sneakerheads. I just put under my chat over there to the side, I just put the link that takes you to the community tab of my YouTube page. From the community tab of my YouTube page, you will see the topmost post describes the show for tonight and has the link to StreamYard that gets you backstage, as the people who are back there right now can attest to. So if you want to call in, you just have to be a sneakerhead on the channel and then go over to the community tab, use that link that I put in the chat just a moment ago. We will try to keep it moving so that if there are people waiting in the waiting room, we'll attempt to keep it to around 7 minutes. I'm not starting any freaking timers, but you know, that's what we're going to try and do to be polite to those that are waiting. I love those that came in early in the chat. As always, Ellis10 Sneakerhead here on the channel, just coming in to spread some positivity. Love it. Sam's Party coming in. Kyle's going to prove he can coach overlooked role players into Pro Bowl stat guys. Ray McLeod, he's already done it with Breida and Mostert. Sam's is optimistic in case we do not have Deebo Samuel back. We got a bunch of people saying what's up as well, but I want to get into the calls right now. First up, we are bringing in that Niner guy. That Niner guy, welcome to the stream. How you doing?
I'm okay.
now, is that a reflection of the Deebo drama that is going on? Is that why you have a little solemn feel to the initial?
Yeah, I mean, This is brutal. I mean,
it is.
There's no way to explain it. And listening to Darlington talk today, it was on Eisen today. If anyone saw it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it sounds like the biggest thing is that Deebo wants to be back closer to home, back to his family unit. That seems to be the big sticking issue, because Darlington kind of made it say, yeah, it's money, it's this and that, but really I think it's this. Yeah. And that's something that Schefter said. And I think, it's a tough pill to swallow, but as far as reasons to leave, I do sort of understand that personally. He's got a kid, his family unit's there. It's just kind of the same reason why, Tom Brady never really coming to the Niners wasn't realistic. His son lives in New York, and he did want to be closer to his kid. So I can respect the decision, maybe not all the antics around it, but I can respect the reasons.
I do too. If that is the reason, I would suspect that even if that is the reason, there is a way to make it right monetarily. That's just my feeling on it, is that when people, Robbie Gould is a prime example. He wanted to be back in Chicago. Absolutely a family man, wanted to be back with the kids, felt bad that the boys were growing up without him around, because he would choose to come out to California and stay there while the family stayed back in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I really thought that he was going to stick to his guns on that. The Niners play hardball in that situation and then ponied up with a very lucrative contract for a kicker of his age. And all of a sudden, Chicago wasn't as big of a concern. So my hope is that the same could be true for Deebo, because if it's not, if it truly is, I want to be closer to home, there's nothing you can do that will make me feel differently about that. That's where you are. You cannot overcome that. You have to just admit failure at that point and trade him away. The reason that I'm optimistic that's not the case is just a couple of months ago, it seemed as if Deebo was fine being in San Francisco and fine being a wideback. It wasn't until sometime around the negotiations starting that he really started to throw out this animosity towards the team. So my gut says it is money related, even if it's tangentially.
Yeah, money can fix things. But, here's one thing I will say. The difference between Deebo's offseason this year and any other offseason is that what's the one thing that Deebo got to do this year that he didn't get to do in the previous two seasons? He got to go to Super Bowl row. He got to go to the Pro Bowl. He got to be around people who really aren't Niners.
That's
And
very true.
And I think that when you see the money kind of like the money talk being thrown at you,
right,
your priorities change a bit. And, it didn't help that Christian Kirk got severely overpaid and it blew up the market. And then what happened to Adams and Hill, that didn't help at all.
right.
So it's a cluster of things that maybe change his mindset, because I think going at the end of the season, Deebo's like, yeah, we'll get it worked out with the Niners. I'm not too worried about it. But then other people and other things start coming clear as you get some time away. And then you have to make a big decision.
I do think that you point out a critical element to this, and that is Deebo making the rounds, going to the Pro Bowl. You saw him all over social media, all over NFL Network, hanging out with other receivers, other players that were either in the process of getting their own huge contract or had already gotten a huge contract. Mm-hmm. And I do think that it's fair to assume there were some very candid conversations that took place that may have been different from the conversations he was having with his 49er teammates, and may have opened his eyes to a bit more of the business aspect of the NFL. And then a couple of big trades go down, and that's going to open your eyes even further. When you look at Devontae Adams, who I would have predicted would have spent his time in Green Bay, in particular after Rodgers coming back, all of a sudden he's moved. That has to get you to scratch your head and say, you know what? Things aren't quite as permanent as they seem in the NFL.
Yeah, it's just how the big money's getting. And unfortunately, now the only teams that can pay for your services when you want to get paid that high right now are teams that are bad. And so, the Dolphins going big, they had a huge offseason as far as spending wins, but they're still actually a pretty good team, but they're lucky they got the cheap quarterback. We should be lucky to have the cheap quarterback. That's another discussion. But that's sort of where it sits. And with Adams, they got their deal before they extended Carr, which lowered his cap hit for this year, made things a lot easier for them to figure out. They had a big spending, but they had a ton of cap space too. So it's a little bit easier in that sense. But right now, man, it's a bummer for Niner fans. And if you're pissed off, I would just say everyone just hold a beat and just try to understand for a second. Don't just jump down Deebo's throat. Don't send the terrible things that were sent.
Do not.
That's not indicative of the fan base. That's just hopefully a few outlier individuals.
Yeah, hopefully trolls. Hopefully not even 49er fans. That's my hope. I understand that within every segment of the population, there are people who I may not get along with, even 49er faithful. My hope, though, is that they would be more decent toward Deebo with him pouring his heart out on the field last season.
Yeah, man, Deebo left it all on the field. And
yes, he did.
And I only think the only way this gets remedied is they offer him $26 million plus annually a year, which they're not going to do.
Right.
They're not going to do it.
That's the question. Admin Honor points out, he says, no, money is secondary. Parag has hurt Deebo's ego. He's the entire Niners offense. I would argue, though, that the way, if it is ego, I'm not saying that it is, but Admin Honor is throwing that out there. The way in which Deebo's ego was bruised would have been a low ball offer, right? So it was money underneath it all. That to me is, again, the core issue, or at least what could be used to get over the hump. If it is truly wanting to be closer to family, I still wholeheartedly believe there's enough money in a potential deal to get him to forget about that idea.
And I think that's fair too, but I think it's at the point where Deebo is more concerned with Deebo's needs, not the Niners' needs.
Yeah.
Because, and I agree. I think
and he should be.
Yeah, and he should be. He's got to do what's best for him and his family. I mean,
yes.
This is the first time in his life he has bargaining power. Because, in the draft, you have no bargaining power. You just go where you're picked. And
maybe the only time he has really elite level bargaining power, right? The next contract is he's going to be 30, north of 30. And at that point, he's not going to earn the same type of deal that he can right now in his prime.
He won't get close to that because, he probably has like 3 or 4 elite years like this left. And then who knows what happens to him personally. I mean, if he keeps getting used at running back, it could be 3 years. Who knows?
Right.
So
it's really a short shelf life for those that are used as heavily as Deebo was. Let me ask you this question. I'm interested in answering it as well. Jim Norcal coming in at Rob Schuh. Scenario: Deebo gets traded away. 49ers don't make the playoffs. Who gets fired, Lynch or Parag? My question is, does anyone get fired? I think it would need to be a pretty bleak season for someone to actually lose their job, to get fired because of it. I could see a scenario where Lynch all of a sudden decided to step away and go into broadcasting, but I don't see a scenario where a season where they just missed the playoffs gets anybody a pink slip.
So Parag is never getting fired.
He is Jed's buddy.
Yeah, so remember, guys, 2015 when the mass exodus happened and people were blaming Parag left and right, and he didn't get fired. Other people got fired. And Parag is very good at what he does, but I think Kruger said it best. Parag has his own personal scoreboard where he keeps tallies of how many dollars and cents he signs because he wants to win the deal. Like Parag's a very high achieving person. Like he's at Harvard Business School, Stanford MBA. Like
very intelligent individual,
very smart, and he has an ego for sure. Guys like that usually do. So there's that. Lynch, on the other hand, I gotta be honest. I think Lynch might be gone either way at the end of this offseason.
Interesting. Voluntarily or fired?
I think voluntarily, or it's going to be one of those like Doug Wilson for the Sharks saying, "We're asking you to leave, but really you're fired. Get out."
Right.
Sort of one of those.
Yeah. Allow him to save a little face on the way out, basically.
Exactly. Because I think Adam Peters will take his job next year, especially if they don't hit in the draft. Regardless of whether they trade Deebo or not, the fact that this offseason has been a complete disaster by any sort of metric, it makes you answer two questions. Are they prepared going into off seasons? And has their plan the last two seasons been a good plan? And I would argue their last two off seasons have had terrible plans because they gave up too much value to get the third overall pick. Right. I don't care what anyone says; they way overpaid. Maybe they could have done 1 and 2 1s and 2 2s, kind of very similar to other deals around that. But the 3 1s and the Niners have been really hamstrung because of that trade.
Yes, they are.
And so that's a poor plan as well. And now coming into this offseason where you lose a hell of a lot more than you gain. Now, it's not over yet. I think maybe after the draft and after the compensation window ends, the Niners could do something, get aggressive. Especially,
I agree that they will make moves.
Yeah, I think they're going to do something. I don't think they're done yet. There's a lot of good veteran players out there.
Yes,
so
there are.
I don't think it's over yet, but he's really got to save his job starting next Thursday. Well, it's Friday. And
or maybe Thursday. Who knows?
Maybe Thursday. But before I go, I was going to throw this trade out there because I sent it to you, and I thought it might be a good idea. A trade that I read actually on a Panthers website, and I thought about this, and I thought this might be a good way to get value for Deebo.
Yeah, right. If it has to happen, you want to get value in return. Break it down for us. Because
I think you need to get a top 50 pick, and you also need to get a player back, a real player, not a draft pick. And so
I like this hypothetical.
My hypothetical is you trade Deebo, Jimmy, and a mid-round pick, a 4th or a 5th, whatever Carolina wants. You take DJ Moore, Sam Darnold to make the money work, and then the 6th overall pick.
Ooh. I mean, that gives you a lot of flexibility. Just to tease what you did in the mock draft afterwards, you then turn that 6th pick into multiple picks, right? You began to trade back and accrue additional assets so that you could take some players in the range that you wanted them, but multiple players as opposed to just one at 6th overall. I do think that is an intriguing idea. I hope the 49ers are getting creative in ways to bring back the greatest amount of spoils and to clear Jimmy Garoppolo off the roster. I tell you what, it would pain me greatly to have Deebo leave the 49ers, no matter what we get in return. However, I will be able to sleep a little bit easier if it really is a king's ransom. That is how I'm going to create some feeling of comfort and security, wrap my little blanket around me and cry myself to sleep with all the draft picks that we got in return for Deebo. So that is my hope, but we'll know within the week. That's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it. We will play around with that potential scenario, get people's opinions on trading away Deebo and potentially getting creative with Carolina. I am going to roll through down to that waiting room. That Niner guy, phenomenal first call. Good, sir.
Good talking to you, buddy.
Always. You take care. All right. Bringing in Chris Royal to the stream. Chris, how you doing, man? Got that Bosa jersey on, looking sharp.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and I got the black and red hat.
The residency hat
Amen.
has arrived.
Yes.
In time for the draft. I'm digging it, man. You're going to be styling out there in Vegas.
For sure.
Yes. All right, man. So how you feeling about the Deebo situation? It has clearly melted down since the last time that we spoke. We're at a point where it looks pretty bleak. I mean, if I were a betting man and I took my emotion out of it, I'd probably bet on Deebo getting traded at this point. I don't know. It seems like a 50-50 proposition, or at least close to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to make it work out. I think somewhere along the way a bridge got burnt, and I don't know if
sure
there's
sounds
any way
that way.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any way to come back from it, to be honest.
Oh, I like 187 here is like, don't speak it into existence. 187, don't speak of a trade. Let's be faithful. I like that idea of like, that's what I want to happen is Deebo not to be traded. So let's speak it into existence that the Niners can get a deal done, bribe Deebo with enough freaking cheddar to keep the man in San Francisco and have him forget about his hometown. Let's bring in Jimmy J, Sneakerhead here on the channel with the comment. Very hard to make that Carolina hypothetical work with the huge extension they signed Moore to. I haven't looked at the money on that. It wasn't interesting, right? You're getting back Sam Darnold to clear the cap for Carolina. You're getting back Moore, and you're getting back that 6th pick. I have not examined the money on it yet, but I would assume that it probably works given that Jimmy's salary is headed out the door in that regard. Other than that, if you take the money out of it, what did you think of that trade hypothetical, Chris? Did you like the idea of getting back that 6th overall pick, sending both Jimmy and Deebo off?
Yeah, I mean, it works out as long as, we get Jimmy off the books. I think in any kind of trade that we have, it'll balance it out.
That makes sense. Troy coming in to say, Rob, I got that 94 stitch throwback Deebo jersey last season, thinking he was here forever. Damn. Troy, damn for you, because it should have been forever. Honestly, Chris, when you thought of last season, when you looked at what Deebo was doing on the field, when you heard what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan had to say about Deebo at the end of the year during the season, how important he was to the team, how they had set aside the money needed to get this deal done, was there ever any doubt in your mind that we would sign Deebo long-term?
No, there is no doubt. I didn't think it was even.
Nor I.
I didn't think it was something that we even needed to waste time talking on, to be honest. I mean, his play on the field speaks for itself. Like many people have said, he's the reason why we won games.
Right.
Hands down.
Yes.
I don't think there's any debate to that. So trading him, releasing him, any of that stuff would have never popped into my head at all.
No, nor I. I mean, honestly, this seemed like one of the sure thing. I thought between the two that the harder deal to get done would honestly be Nick Bosa. I assumed that he would be the harder negotiator of the two, just in observations of how things played out with his brother Joey's deal and him most likely wanting to top that, quite honestly. I just did not see this coming with Deebo, and it caught me off guard because he is one of the players, because of how emotionally invested he clearly was in last season. I became that much more emotionally invested in him as a fan, and that leaves me feeling, sort of like I was not left at the altar or anything here, but, feeling a little bit hurt is how I feel.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm right there with you. I mean, hearing that report that they were offering him $20 million to start off,
right. Yeah. Even reported 19 was the starting offer.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It's crazy. It's almost laughable. And I think that, it seems like Deebo has that mentality where he knows what he's he's worth, what he brings to the team, and he
Yeah.
felt that offer, if that was truly the offer, that's just a slap in the face.
It is. And so Freddie Mac comes in here, Freddie Mac Dre, with the different perspective on this, but it ties into what you're saying. And I'm in agreement with you, Chris. Deebo messed this up. It's a negotiation. He walked away, so that says he has no love. 49ers would pay him $25 million per season eventually. So I agree with the sentiment that it's a negotiation. In an ideal circumstance, you don't allow your emotions to get involved. You understand that the first offer that comes to you is a low ball offer, and you're going to negotiate from there. It's not their final terms. However, there's a difference between a low offer and an insulting offer. And it does appear that the Niners crossed that line. So I cannot excuse the front office in its entirety for that mistake. I think that was a misstep. I think you have now upset your star wide receiver who you very clearly wanted to bring back. So again, I have to lay some blame, not just with Deebo, who, yes, I believe it would be better if he hadn't allowed emotion to get involved, but with the 49ers front office. How do you feel about it, Chris?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you on that. I think if, he was looking for, 27, 28 million a year, something really high, right? And they come in with, 18, 19 million, that's a whole 10 million less than what he thinks he's worth. And that's a huge disparity for.
Yeah, that's a large gap.
Yeah. I mean, of course I'd take that 19 million, but
yeah, Bullpup would too. I'll take 19 mil. Yeah, but it's all relative. Most of us for our jobs are not doing something where we're likely to end up with brain damage at the end of our lives or with knees that can't support us later in life, right? These things are reality for NFL players, for gladiators like they are, and they get paid handsomely to do so, but I therefore don't fault them when they try to maximize those earnings because they are putting their bodies literally on the line in order to get it.
Yeah, for sure. And, there's a portion of me that thinks his, family has a lot to do with it. I mean, he seems like he's, really in touch with his family.
Yes.
Enjoys being with them and stuff. So I'm assuming that the low ball offer plus, the desire to be closer to family probably just kind of tipped that to where he's like, you know what, if we're not going to be serious about this, then, just let me move on.
Right. And what is difficult is once you have reached the point where we are at now, it's hard to walk it back.
Yeah.
It's hard to take back some of the emotion that has risen to the surface. It's hard to walk back the insults that one might have felt throughout this process. And that is just unfortunate and not the ideal way to do business. Again, I'm sure there's fault on each side as to how we got to this point, but certainly I look at the 49ers as, partially guilty in that regard.
Yeah, I would definitely put a significant amount of blame on them if that was the original offer. That's just, it's crazy. I mean, even for people that don't do play football for a living, I mean, you can tell that I wouldn't have taken that offer either.
No, and I probably would have taken some insult to it.
Sure.
We are still rooting for Deebo to be a 49er, no doubt about that. That is what we want on the stream. Chris, I think I'm correct in speaking for you on that as well.
100%.
But if you had to wager, do you think that you're going to need to show up to day one of the draft now? I know you had planned like, hey, maybe you'd do something else that day. We'll just show up day two because the Niners don't have a pick. Are you now going to have to be there? Are the Niners going to have a pick day one? Is the trade going to happen? What's your gut say?
Yeah, I mean, my gut says that there's no turning back now. I mean, we're going to have to get something from them. And, I think I might have to be there for the first round.
I think I might have to as well. Well, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward. We are definitely grabbing a meal while we're in town, Chris, and I am really looking forward to it. I am going to get down into the waiting room. We got a little bit down there. And if we got time at the end, I meant to say it before for that Niner guy as well. But as always, if we got time at the end, we can always do the round table if that works out.
Sounds perfect to me.
Fantastic, Chris. Good to see you. And I'll see you again in person soon, my friend.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care, Chris. All right. Bringing in Ekim to the stream. Just going to put on Troy's super chat real quick. Troy coming in, Sneakerhead here on the channel. The good news is that the NFL season comes out May 12th. I'm hoping to go to my first Niners game ever. Bucket list. That's fantastic, Troy. All right, we are bringing Ekim into the stream. What's
Can
up,
you hear me,
Ekim?
Rob?
Yes, sir. Audio is sounding crisp. How you doing?
Suffering from leg day since leg day was yesterday at the gym. So
Ooh, leg day is tough. I got my ass handed to me this morning doing a step back squat or something like step back lunge. Step back lunge kicked my ass today. That was tricky. All right, so let me just ask, since Troy came in with that comment, Ekim, have you had the good fortune to attend a 49er game? And if not, do you is it on the bucket list?
at some point, just depends on the circumstances.
Yes. Now you're out in the Midwest area, right? So probably closest to you, you have a chance maybe to go to like a Chicago game in the future if you wanted to.
Chicago, yes, they're a little overpriced, but
Yeah.
what NFL game isn't overpriced per se?
That's right. Even when you go out to the sticks now, even when you're out in Cincinnati or Cleveland, like even those games are pricey. It's pretty ridiculous. All right, Ekim, what are your thoughts on this entire crazy drama that is unfolding with our star wide receiver?
I thought it kind of started last year when they asked him to play running back.
The switch to wideback is where you see this pivot point tracing back to.
Yes. To me, I think I've always, in talking with Grant, I've always told him I'm not Kyle's biggest fan. We'll just leave it at that. But, to me, when you take the ball out of Jimmy's hands, have to give it to someone like Deebo, you're telling him that, hey, we're expecting you to make all the plays since we can't count on this player X to help us make those plays.
Right.
You're asking him to lift far more weight than somebody else in a tougher circumstance.
Yeah.
Because you gotta look at it when they went for that field goal to win the game in Green Bay, the game you were at.
Right.
Who did they give the ball to? They didn't have Jimmy throw the ball that I could recall.
No.
So
yeah, the trust wasn't there. I mean, they very clearly said, hey, when we need a big play, when we need someone that we can trust to get it done, they turned to Deebo. And Deebo answered the call. That to me is the most frustrating part. I'm coming around to this idea of the logical side of it, understanding that this is a business, understanding that the two sides may get to a point where they can't work it out, and also understanding the human element of it, not getting furious at Deebo. I'm disappointed that Deebo would choose to go elsewhere, but I also have to understand it. It is him deciding what's best for him, for his family, what's best in his life. And so I'll miss him like crazy if we end up having to trade him. My hope, though, is that he can just take a step back, cool off for a second. The Niners come to their senses, put a legitimate offer on the table, and maybe the two sides can come back together.
maybe, to me, the kind of team they need to trade Deebo to is one where they have multiple assets in the first and second rounds, and maybe a young player. To me, I have no problem trading to Green Bay, but they have to make Green Bay really squeal for it.
Yeah, that would be tough. I would hate to see Deebo paired up with Rodgers. That would be a formidable team. I mean, I suppose that you could still point to the 49ers track record directly against Aaron Rodgers and have some faith that they would still be able to overcome a matchup against Green Bay. But man, you hate to see the rich get richer in your own conference.
True, but you got to say, hey, just to even get our attention, you need to give us your 2 firsts, your 2 seconds, the rights to Amari Rodgers, and then another pick in the future next year. Maybe a second or a third, just to get us listening.
Yes. You really would have to stick it to him. Just to bring in a couple of comments, Kevin from Glasgow coming in at Rob. It's mental that a couple months ago, we were so looking forward to the Trey era and his current and future weapons. It's tainted with all this offseason Deebo drama. Man, I want Deebo to stay. If you had to pick one way or the other, if you could get a deal done at a near top of the market price tag, you're going to have to pay Deebo 25, 26 million a year. You're going to have to guarantee a large chunk of it deep into the contract. Are you choosing to keep Deebo around at that price tag, or are you looking at the trade options and hoping in to bring some draft picks?
To me, right now, this team needs more for Trey. If they're going to go with Trey right now, I sent you the message on Tuesday that we have Trent Williams and the Three Stooges and Shemp, and I love those guys. I love them.
That's a great line. You use that. I think I saw you use that in a comment to me on Twitter, and I was dying, man.
I thought Shemp was underrated, but I can understand that. But to me, they had the plan of thinking that Alex Mack is coming back, and to me, he looked like he had one foot out the door at the end of the season.
Yeah, kind of seems that way.
You can't be counting on that. And then another thing to expect that, our plan at right tackle is to expect a fully healthy Mike McGlinchey. That's not a plan. That's a fairy tale.
Yeah,
with a lot
he's
of
coming off of a torn freaking quad, clean off the bone, right?
Eesh. Something to that effect. You can't expect a player, someone who's an older player who wants to make, says, hey, I've taken enough collisions in my career. I want to at least try to enjoy whatever my life with my family. And then, and you can't expect a player with a horrific injury like that to come back maybe 1 year when that could be a 2-year injury. You never know.
Right. Yes, I did certainly. When that injury first happened, I went and researched it, and I was kind of shocked to hear the percentage of players that either never come back and play at all, or just never return to form. It was one of those where it happened. I was like, that's a shame. Lost for the season. He'll be back next year. Went and did that research and realized, it is a legitimate question as to whether he'll be back at the start of next season. So I did take it as a positive sign to see him running under resistance on the sideline there. But I still believe it's a question mark as to whether he's going to be available at the start of the season.
Yes. So in order to get equivalent compensation for Deebo, either get a contract done here and have him turn down a big number and have it be where the Niners say, hey, we offered him $26 million plus and even incentives during the season to get even more, and he said no, or get an offer where it's going to hurt the other team to even make it worth the 49ers while. Like a Herschel Walker kind of trade where the Cowboys traded Herschel and several picks, but they got all those picks back that got them on that 5-year run with Jimmy Johnson.
That's right. Very seldom does it work out for the team that gets the one player and gives up a boatload of picks in order to get them. I know that's not music to 49ers fans' ears in consideration for Trey Lance, but quite honestly, it just historically, when people give up a mass amount of draft picks in order to acquire a player, like the Herschel Walker trade, it oftentimes works out better for the receiving team that's getting all of those assets. Let me ask you this one before I need to go down to that waiting room. Alan comes in with this, Sneakerhead here on the channel, at Rob Schuh. Do you think that Coach Kyle needs to step in and talk to Deebo and tell Lynch to pay Deebo? He's implying much like the Trent Williams deal. Then he goes on to say, hit that like button like Gore hit the middle linebackers. Alan, well done. So what do you think? Does this need to be a Trent Williams situation? Should Kyle Shanahan step in, speak directly to Deebo, then speak directly to Lynch and moderate this and get a deal done?
There's two prongs I have to answer that. First off, Kyle needs to tell Deebo that he's not planning on using him as a running back outside of an occasional trick play or two. And then try to say, hey, let's work out a deal. Give us a 96-hour window or whatever window that Deebo's team can work on to get a deal done. If not, then work out some kind of a trade package. But I do have one last point I want to talk to you, Rob.
Hit me.
I think Bosa's going to be an easier deal, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
Bosa's dad grew up in the NFL and has money. He grew up with money. He played at an elite high school program in Southeast Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas.
His brother now has money too.
So if I'm Bosa, I'm in the catbird seat. I have another great year. All I see are just dollar signs flashing, with a check that's getting bigger and bigger with every sack he gets.
Right.
And also, he also has a 5th-year option where, the Niners will have to force that on him
Yes.
if they want to. But then, if I'm Nick Bosa, I'm still in the catbird seat. TJ Watt is getting $28 million average a season as a pass rusher for Pittsburgh. What do you think? What do you think Nick Bosa is going to ask for? He's going to ask for 35 to 40 million. I don't think 30 will even get, but he's going to say no. He's going to say I want 35 to 40.
Man. It certainly could get. I mean, it could get up there. I think most likely in my mind, I'm looking more in the low 30s, but it wouldn't shock me if one of the numbers thrown out there, not obviously not the guaranteed, not the real money, but if that high annual average amount gets up there. But you think that'll be easy to get done?
I think it'll be an easier thing to get done because
I agree with that.
He's already a top player, and what's the NFLPA want their top players to do? Set the bar again on the highest average salaries.
Keep it climbing.
So, I just look at it as in the easiest, the least common denominator, the easiest way I can.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Thank you, Rob.
Ekim, fantastic as always. Appreciate it, my friend.
As I say, they need to get at least one first-round pick in multiple seconds.
Yes.
If they if they have to get a trade for Deebo.
Got to get a king's ransom. Ekim, you take care, my friend. I'll see you next week. All right, I'm bringing in Texas Niners comment here, Sneakerhead here on the channel. At Rob, if Deebo is not saying, I want to be with the 49ers, then I'm cool with him moving on. Best of luck to him. I think a lot of fans feel that way. I think a lot of fans say, hey, if you do not want to be here with this team, my team, then great. Best of luck. On to the next franchise. I understand that concept, that feeling of, hey, I want you on this team. I want you to be a part of my favorite team, the San Francisco 49ers. However, if you do not want to be a part of that team, then okay, I guess it's over. You're moving on. I'm moving on. I understand that. I'm still a little too attached to Deebo. Like that girlfriend that breaks up with you that you're not quite ready to let go of yet. That's where I am with Deebo, but I understand. I understand this mindset for sure. All right, we're bringing Swan Song into the program. Swan Song, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks, Rob, for having me.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to have you on. I've got Chris Royal Super Chat here. Got to bring that in. So we're going to throw that up, see if there's a response here that we want to throw in. Deebo, pick 61, 93 to the Jets for pick 10, 35, and a future third. Do you think that would get it done? I'm going to contemplate it. Swan Song, what does your gut say about 61, 93, and Deebo for 10, 35, and a future third?
I mean, I think realistically, that's the value makes sense there, but I don't think that's going to get done because I believe the 49ers have already said this and said this requires a king's ransom, right?
Right.
So whether that's
you think the Niners would not agree to this?
No, I don't think the Niners would do that because it's either the Niners posturing or setting the expectation to fans as well. Like, because they know if they give this package at Chris Royal, a lot of the people that are on the show all day and doing all the, watching this, a lot of informed fans would go, yeah, that's fair. But we make up of 0.0001% of the fan base, right?
Right.
The guy that's not going on shows is just watching ESPN is going to go, wait, what? For Deebo? Like, that's not going to make sense to them. And those are the fans, that the 49ers worry about most, right? Like,
right.
In my opinion. So
that's fair. And I think you're right that while it is a fair trade as far as value for Deebo, value for the picks that the Niners are sending out and those that are coming back, it strikes me as a fairly balanced trade. I do believe the 49ers, when they signal their intent to hold out for something that really blows them away.
Right. Look what the case with Jimmy G.
Right.
Like, they already said that they're going to accept the price and then they never take the other price. So yeah, it's bad. I don't think that's the best way to do business. I think sometimes it's good and bad. It just depends how you pivot to a situation where it starts changing. I'm not sure if they know how to do that well, but I mean, whatever. Like, we'll see. Time will tell, right?
Time will tell. We got to bring in another super chat because that's just how business rolls here. Jaguayo56, Sneakerhead here on the channel. At Rob, Trent Baalke is trying to sabotage us with the signing of Christian Kirk. Would it be prudent to put Deebo in a Le'Veon Bell option? Family decides. So let's put that out there. Do you see it as a viable option for the 49ers to sort of hold the screws to Deebo Samuel in this regard? They certainly have contractual leverage. Deebo is under contract for this year already. If he sits out, he would have to forfeit money back to the organization to pay fines. And the 49ers then would have control further with use of the franchise tag. The question is it prudent and is it wise to use the nuclear option in this instance?
I don't think so because, everyone says the 49ers do have leverage, and they definitely do have leverage from a contractual standpoint.
Yes.
But there's nuances with this, right? So, like, if Deebo comes in, let's say he does a hold-in, right? He goes, okay, whatever, I'm going to do the hold-in. Okay, I'm even going to play. As soon as Deebo gets any inkling of feeling hurt, like physically hurt, he's going to shut it down because he knows he's going to be a free agent the next year. As long as he shows one game of explosion that it shows that it's Deebo and then shuts it down, every GM, every NFL person is going to know. We know what he's doing. It's going to be obvious what he's doing, right? If it gets, sure, he won't have a great season if he does that. And sure, there'll be questions about his character and things like that. Like, hey, any team getting him? What if he does that to us, right? There would have to be assurances that being made. But so either party does not want this. The 49ers don't want this. Deebo does not want this. That is like beyond nuclear option. That's like zombie apocalypse option.
it is end of the world scenarios.
Yeah.
Is what we're getting into there.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it would send the wrong message if you go nuclear on Deebo again after what we witnessed on the field last year, what he did for the team, him leaving everything out there on the field, clearly emotionally invested in the team's success, clearly devastated in that last loss in LA. If you then treat him unfairly by public perception or by players' perception, that could cast a dispersion on your organization from a player perspective, not just a fan perspective, but from future free agents or future players who see you treat Deebo in that way and take offense to it.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing I want to say is that, we're hearing a lot of, to me, this contract's all about money. It's obvious to me, right? All the other stuff.
I would agree.
All the other stuff is negotiating noise, right? So think about it. Let's talk about this. What would the 49ers say? Okay, say Deebo's contract, the agent goes, of course, we want Tyreek money, right? That's obvious, right? Look at our season. We're younger, we're the late, you know what I'm saying? Like, it makes sense for them to ask that, right?
Sure.
And then the 49ers come back with, well, you got 1 year of production, elite production, right? You see, we can't pay you that way. You have, an injury history. That's a concern, right? And then, hey, Deebo, we're building a championship roster here. And, we paid Kittle. We know we paid. And I understand we're going to pay you handsomely. But, right? So then that's their negotiation, right?
Right.
So then Deebo, what else can he come back with other than, well, you use me as a running back. You're talking about injury, but you're using me as a running back. So I need more guarantees. Like, if you want Deebo to be Deebo, then there's going to be a risk of injury for that. And I'm willing to give it for the team, but you have to take care of me. You have to take care of me in that regard. These other players are not carrying the ball 70 times, 60 times, right? So there's one point. And then, of course, when it comes down to the location, and then he can say, well, also, hey, California is expensive, man. Like, hey, I not only have to pay California income tax, but hey, the Bay Area prices are like some of the highest in the country.
Ridiculous. Right? I was just for fun, I was looking at houses in Santa Clara, and when looking at what a $2 million house in Santa Clara looks like, it's pretty freaking sad.
Yeah, it's not much. I have a friend who moved up there that works at Facebook, or she works at Facebook, and they just bought like a 1,600 square foot house for like 1.5 million.
Yeah. When you're paying $1 million per 1,000 square feet, that's problems, man.
And all these things are just negotiation things. Like Deebo's saying that he doesn't really. That's not the main thing. He just has to come back with something.
Sure.
Like when he's going to come back.
I don't know though. This sounds he sounds pretty serious, don't you think? Like, I mean, this seems. I agree that he is posturing to some extent, but this also feels very real, like real posturing.
What I think what is real is that his determination, their determination is what's real. Yeah. I think because he posted in Twitter today, he's like, this man thinks that I'm doing this for a location, and he Adam
talking
Schefter.
About Schefter.
Like that says it right there to me. He's like, yeah, he might have said that, and that might have been a discussion point. But that's not what he feels in his heart, because when it comes down to it, if you pay Deebo the right money, he wouldn't be saying, "Oh yeah, well, California."
That's what I agree with you on. Yeah. Is like there's a certain number where Deebo's like, "What do you mean? I don't care about California taxes. What do you mean? I don't need to be with my family." Exactly. Like, no, I'll take this contract. There is a number that does that. The question is just whether the Niners are willing to hit that number.
Right, and so that's the thing. I think, of course, that agent that they have and that agency that they have, they're smart. They know how the Niners work, and maybe this is the way they see. Because if you say, "Oh, Kittle got the most money and Warner got the most money," if you look at their contracts to the other contracts that right around them, the 49ers won on those contracts relative to the other contracts that were being signed, right?
Yeah.
So they know that. Like Deebo's like, I ain't going down that way. I ain't going out like that.
No.
So I think they're more
hardball.
Yeah, he played hardball, and he's playing hardball as well, right? I do think, of course, all the immaturity thing, all the impatience.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of the game plan or what. I mean, we'll know when the dust settles, right?
Right.
If that was part of the game plan, or it was just Deebo being anxious and immature. Who knows? We can't really know what is what until this is all done. Right? Yep. Because everyone can say what they want, but you really don't know until the dust settles and how this plays out. Like,
you won't really know until the book is written years from now, right? Because it will be written about this Niners franchise. There's no doubt, with all that has happened over the past few years, someone will write a tell-all book about Kyle Shanahan's era for sure. And we'll learn then. But until then, it is all just speculation.
So I'm still. At this point, I think it's 50-50.
Okay.
Like in my mind, it could go either way. It could go where, because I get it.
Agree.
The gap is huge. The gap is 30 million and 19 million, right? Right. So
that's a big gap.
That's a big gap. And of course, how they presented the deal offer also could have, disrespected, like Deebo.
I agree. You got egos involved. As soon as you came out with a lowball offer that was disrespectful, now you have crossed a line. You've gone from, oh, we're in negotiations to we're throwing insults at one another, basically.
Yeah, and then another thing I heard brought up in one of the ESPN shows is actually one of the good things they've actually said, right? Is that, Deebo is a new father.
Yes.
So think about it. Like if you're a new father, there's a sense of pride that happens. At least I can talk for myself. There's things that start changing. Your whole world changes on how you think of the world, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, you're probably not getting that much sleep.
No, he is definitely sleep deprived. I did hear that on ESPN. I totally agree.
Right. So
he's crabby.
There's those things. And Deebo's young, and and everyone says how Deebo should have said this or Deebo should have said that. Yeah, maybe in your culture or maybe where you were brought up, that's the right thing to say. But we don't know someone else's culture. We don't know someone else how they grew up, right? To know we don't know all those things. So he's doing it the way he's doing it. I don't think he's done anything that bad.
No, he hasn't.
What has he done, right?
It doesn't warrant the response that he's gotten. I will say that definitively. Am I thrilled with the way it's played out? Absolutely not. Do I disrespect him because of it? No, I just don't.
Yeah, I don't think he's crossed that line where I'm like, no, Deebo. Maybe with the antic stuff, I'm like, okay, that's a little, but there's nothing that's been offensive to me. Like, I don't take offense to anything that he's done. He's just trying to get the most for himself, right?
Yes.
So whether the 49ers do this or not, I don't know. Because like I said, I've been on both sides of this thing. Like it keeps on changing. Like I go, man, the Niners can't pay that much. But then again, if I'm Deebo, it's like, dude, I gotta get paid. Like you
it's
know
your
what I
one
mean? Like
chance. I'm
yeah,
telling
so
you.
it's hard. It's really hard.
It is very hard. Swansong, this has been a phenomenal call. I absolutely appreciate the opinions. And hopefully by next week, we will have our answer.
Yes. Why is it always for the Niners? Next week, every time it's next week. After this, it's going to be another week. It's going to be GBG.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, great to talk to you, Swansong.
Okay.
All right, take care. All right, we're bringing William Bennett into the channel. Just going to hit this super chat right here. Brian Rivera, Sneakerhead here on the channel. What if Deebo wants to play wide back, but it's the Niners front office that don't want it? Rather treat him like a traditional wide receiver instead. Protect their investment. Also justifies low ball. I mean, it could be. Any number of hypotheticals could be true. Certainly, until we get that tell-all book, we won't actually know. I would suspect that this isn't the case because the 49ers value that versatility. And my guess is they use that versatility against Deebo, which again would add to the level of insult that Deebo might have felt. I would think Deebo would have responded pretty favorably if the 49ers had said, hey, we'd like to just use you as a more traditional wide receiver going forward. We don't want to place the wear and tear on your body. I would think that Deebo would have responded positively to that. So because of Deebo's very negative response to this, I'm left assuming that the 49ers very much wanted to continue using Deebo in the same fashion that they did, getting that same level of production, and simply were not offering to compensate him at the appropriate level. And Deebo took that as an insult and rolled from there. But Brian, any of these scenarios are most definitely possible, right? They all could be. And until we get that behind the scenes information, we won't know for sure. I would say, in my mind, it's more probable that the Niners would have wanted to continue using Deebo as a wide back. All right, we're bringing William Bennett into the stream. William Bennett, cheers, my man. How you doing?
I'm good, Rob. How you doing?
I am doing well. I mean, I'm doing all right is what I should say. The Deebo thing has messed me up a little bit. You know, he's I think, top of my head, he's my favorite player on the team, you know? And so to think about him going elsewhere is tough.
Yeah, it is wild. You know, I was looking forward for the draft, and then I'm like hearing all of this, and you know, you hear all the little rumors and everything, and the negotiations going south, and you try to hope for the best, but we know our team.
Yes.
We know our team. Let's keep it. I think for a long time, the Niners of now has been living off the rep of the Niners of then under Eddie DeBarlo.
Of the 80s and 90s? I think so too. I mean, even Jed seems to tread on that reputation, right? When he talks about winning culture, when he talks about not settling for anything but championships, he's referring back to what his uncle did.
Right. Because if you took away the accomplishments of the past Niner group and and held us accountable to what we are now, what would you think of the Niners franchise right now? And don't get me wrong. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was going to say, I see it as the last couple of years. I know that people tend to judge Kyle Shanahan pretty harshly, I think because they have high expectations. But when I look at the time that he's been here over that span, I'm pretty pleased with how the 49ers have played, how they've competed, how far they've gotten. So I see it as a positive.
I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say these things, and everybody don't chew my head off, but, you know, I'm going to play a little you know, just some things that, you know, I'm an IT professional, so I'm trained to think out of the box. You know,
yes, and no one's shooting your head off yet. Chris is coming in to compliment the shirt. William, that shirt is fire, my dude.
Hey,
so no shots taken yet.
If anybody noticed, my plan was to wear a different DC comic T-shirt until the start of the season. I don't know if they've been noticing. I wore the Punisher. I wore the Black Panther.
Yes, sir.
Ball. I've worn this one, and I still have some more to go. But I just, I didn't think anybody may notice that. But
Chris is on it.
But I just wanted to say this. I think that dinner that John and Kyle had with Deebo, I think they asked Deebo to take a slight because we got a lot going on this team. People are not saying anymore and not really focusing on having Jimmy on the books is how it's really affecting our team. Honestly, I think something was said to Deebo earlier, like, Deebo, we're going to take care of you as soon as we hit the offseason. I think that's why he comes out and seems so rushed, like, to get paid, because something might have been said. Like your manager, like, hey, Rob, you're a good worker, man. I'm going to definitely take care of you in January. And January, and March comes, and you're like, okay, you forget about me? Like, what's going on? So
right. You said end of Q4 you were going to take care of me, and now here we are, and nothing's happened.
Exactly. And I think they didn't plan to have Jimmy on the books.
But no, I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Plan, Jimmy and this surgery thing and all of this and that. And then having John, Jed, and Cal talk about, oh, we're not going to get rid of Jimmy just to get rid of him, definitely is going to play with the money. Just like Jack said, Jack Hammer, shout out to his show. He said they couldn't possibly give Deebo the money he wants right now as long as Jimmy's on the books. Because and correct me if I'm wrong, Deebo's already has guaranteed money coming to him.
Yeah, well, he has $4 million on the contract for next year, and Jack's assertion, which I think is pretty spot on, is that in Deebo's situation, with the amount of guaranteed money that you're going to need to provide, with the amount of upfront bonus that you're going to have to pay him, even if you make it a 5-year deal with a voidable year at the end, that his average will need to go up, that his year one payment will need to go up at least moderately. It's not going to be one of those deals like Fred Warner or Kittle where his first year number stays the same or even goes down.
Right. And that is because of who? Jimmy.
That is because of Jimmy Garoppolo, no doubt about it. There are other contracts they could extend. Yeah, they could extend Jimmy Ward. They could, but there are very few options.
Honestly, I think this is Jimmy Ward's last year with us. And,
I think so too, unfortunately.
I mean, you have to start. He's getting older, and you have to start. And you could see it a little throughout the season that Jimmy Ward is still good in the game, but you start to see age start to play his part. So you gotta be smart and start to move on from that. So they don't want to extend players that they don't want to. And all this comes around again because Jimmy's on the numbers. Then I think they may have came to, when you hear this 19 million, what if they came to Deebo at that dinner and said, hey, Deebo, we didn't expect Jimmy to be here, so he's playing funny with the money, and Parag. And then, we got to get Nick. So can you take a slight for us so it'll help the team? And Deebo like, what? Take a slide? Man, I'm worth this. I got us. I took our season and put it on my back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, you want to slight me? And that seems like where it can get emotional. And
it definitely got emotional.
And I don't know if anyone heard it or seen it, because I seen a little clip of Deebo's mom's live stream where it was reported that you could hear Deebo talking about the negotiations. And Deebo said he hasn't even been approached with an offer. Yep. If that was in fact Deebo that you could hear.
Right. You can't see him, so you can't really confirm it, but I did hear that clip, and he does say, no, I haven't gotten an offer.
Right. And then I think Deebo mama probably like, you gonna use my boy like that? You shortening his his career span.
Yeah, no
And
doubt. There's no doubt about that.
and I think what would need to do to really satisfy Deebo and get Deebo back, number one, give the man his money. Got to get Jimmy off the books. Just got to. Forget forget what good you think Jimmy is. Come on. It's time to move on. Just time to move on. Get him
I
off.
tend to agree. You have to get that money off the books, hopefully in a trade, but not necessarily. At some point, you're just going to have to clear it. Let me bring in this super chat real quick, William. Roger Sellers coming in. At this point, is there a timeline? If negotiations don't pick back up, do the Niners for sure need to trade Deebo on or before day one of the draft? I say yes. I think that day one of the draft is the hard deadline, because if the 49ers are letting go of one of their premier players, they are going to want to be able to reload this year. And in order to do so, they need to get a first-round draft pick in 2022. My stance is if Deebo Samuel is not traded by day one of the draft, if he's not traded by this time next week, right, when the Niners are potentially on the clock with one of those picks for that trade, then I think the Niners are confident they can work it out. So that, I believe, is a hard deadline.
Yeah, I think day one of the draft is the cutoff date. But as I was saying, what I think, Kyle, I'm not quality control, but if I had if I was Jada or anything, I would have John and I would have Kyle on a plane to Deebo's mama house.
To talk to Deebo's mom?
I think right now, the only thing that would show Deebo, because you could tell all of this is also coming from family. You're going to have to go to Deebo, go to his mama house, and you might have to humble yourself a little bit, John. You might have to humble yourself a little bit, Kyle. The same thing as you would do for Trent. You might even need to bring Trent with you, because that was always Trent that was walking out the lock out of the dugout, the tunnel with him.
Holding the boombox
with Trent. So you might have to bring Trent there. You might have to bring Trey Lance to even say, "Hey, look, Deebo, I need you, baby. You know what I'm saying? I need you. I'm trying to take this team to a ring."
I think you're very right about needing that personal touch to these negotiations. I believe those are often the touches that bring these sides back together. It was Kyle reaching out to Trent Williams that got that deal done. At some point, you have to bring the human element back into the conversation. And to your point, if Deebo or his family has taken offense to any of this, you have to smooth that over.
Yeah, right now, I think Parag doing a lot of talking.
Yeah. Andrew Hoax agrees with you. William Bennett, you're right, Andrew says.
At some point, you have to cut that. You got to say, "Hey, look, Parag, let me talk to him." Because
and the point here, TB12Y comes in here to say this. They really haggling over $5 million. Fire Parag. What the frick? I think that's in line with what you're talking about here, William. Like, eventually you just got to sit down with Parag and be like, "Hey, we want to get this deal done. Let's get the terms where we need to have them. Let's stop bickering over a few dollars here or there." That's if you want to get the deal done, though. And at this point, the Niners may be exploring the other side of that coin.
Like I said, I think the Niners want to get the deal done, but Deebo has been offended, and his family now feels offended. So what's going on? His family's offended, so he's feeling that offense from his family.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Hey, they ain't even talking to me. I'm hearing from Parag." Or not hearing from Parag. They really don't fire me. Dad, Kyle, where you at?
That Niner guy coming in with a good suggestion here. A players meeting in the Hamptons, like the Dubs for KD, right? Show him the love. Show him he is wanted.
Exactly. You got to go to that man's mama house. You've seen all the college or high school football movies. They always go to the family house and have dinner. I'm trying to go out to 4 or 5 star restaurants. Don't sit down at that man's mama house and have some soul food.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? and
I
talk
love it.
and say, hey, look, we don't know where the disconnect hit. Hey, look, because you got to understand, Parag's not in that locker room.
Yeah.
Not there.
No, he's not. He's not.
So you got to have Fred, Trey, Trent, Kyle. Y'all got to go and talk to that man on a real man-to-man basis. You know what I'm saying? And I think you smooth it over with that man's mama, I think Deebo would come in line. But
you can make it good again.
You know, you got to make it good.
I like this suggestion, William. I like the idea of smoothing it over.
Pride kills a lot of things.
Yes, it does.
But
yes, it does. William, I got to get down to Niner Empire DMV, who is hanging out down there. We got to get him in. Do you want to stick around, though? And we could try it. I mean, if Niner Empire DMV is down with it, we can kick it with a three-person roundtable, bring Chris back in, and roll with that. We'll see what time allows.
I'm here.
Fantastic. William, as always, thank you, sir. I'll see you in just a moment. All right, bringing in Niner Empire DMV. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
It was a good day.
Nice.
I'm not the Deebo thing is it was going to happen. You know, you got it. When you really look at like his productivity, he was our offense at the end of the season. He's the reason why we made it to the playoffs.
Yes, he was.
I get that. When I looked at his statistics for each year, they have a lot to say with his injury-prone issues. He has a lot to say with what he was worth to the team.
Right.
But you gotta look at it from a statistic and an injury prone perspective.
Sure.
Look at the people that we let walk. Most of the people that we let walk were injury prone. So obviously they're trying to get away from the injury prone people.
They really are.
Deal with people that have health.
Yep.
I get that.
Yep.
With Deebo, when the first article came out and said that he wanted 30 million, you're not going to get 30 million.
No.
I get it. You negotiate high.
Yeah, that's right. Start high. They'll start low.
We good. But 22 million, I give you that. I give you 22 million. But when you insult a person with a whole, well, we're gonna give you 18 million. Okay, then you gotta ask the question, well, what am I worth to y'all?
Right.
And then using him as a running back, he had what? 365 yards rushing. 1,405 yards from reception. All pro season, I get that.
Yes.
A smart man is going to want to get paid for what he's worth. But
Absolutely.
At the same time, the team is looking at, like William said, and I agree with him, Jimmy being on the Bucs hurts you.
Yes, it does.
When we didn't move him March 16th, things was going to start crumbling.
Yep. We lost flexibility at that point.
Exactly. So they didn't have a plan in place if they kept him. They're going to lie to us and say it because they got to keep face. So
yes,
I get
with a smile. They're lying right to us with a smile. Oh, we had a plan in place. We were prepared for the contingency that Jimmy would still be here. You
didn't. And then the fact it goes back to, they say Jimmy G is a team guy. Well, a team guy, knowing that he has a shoulder issue, you would have got the surgery right after NFC Championship.
Right. Or after the trade.
Come on.
There were choices to be made here.
So look at the choices that he made. And now you look at what we're in the situation we're in. We didn't have to free up money to really get certain free agents that we really could have used and came in. We got some decent free agents. Like Charvarius Ward is a good corner. He's not a bad corner. And he had one injury issue last season, but he's still a good, solid corner to come in. But to pay Deebo and then got to turn around and pay Nick, Deebo's got to understand that you got to look at, be a receiver. That's what we drafted you for. Right. Yes, we used you at running back, but you kind of lowballed yourself when you said on Super Bowl week, I'm a wide back. Don't ever say that.
Right.
Don't give the organization leverage to use. Oh, so you calling yourself a wide back? Okay, so we ain't got to pay you like a receiver.
We'll pay you like a wide back.
Yeah, so we're going to pay you like a wide back. But
you'll be the highest paid wide back in the league.
Yeah, that's a position that you said you are. So
Right.
you got to look at his statistic and look at his injury prone history, and you're like, okay. And you got to look at another thing. A key denominator is his production might not be as high with Trey Lance at quarterback.
That's very true. You would, I don't know, expect, but you would think it's possible Brandon Ayuk's production is going to jump next year and Deebo's could take a little hit.
Yeah, but and the thing is, we would use you more a wide receiver than running back because, okay, Elijah Mitchell panned out.
Right.
We all know in Kyle's system, any running back can get close to 1,000 yards.
And you know they're going to draft somebody or bring in an undrafted free agent. They do it every year.
Exactly. So you got to look at it. If we do trade him, have we actually really hit on if we get a first round pick or a second round pick? When have we really hit on the first and second? Except Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Trey Lance.
Not many immediate contributors. I mean, Deebo, you could point to him as a second round pick, but it took him a little while in that first year.
But the thing is, in that first year, look who you had around him. Manuel Sanders, they picked him up. They picked up Manuel Sanders to boost up the receiving core. Then his next year, he had what? His first year, he had 302 yards. Then his next year, he had 391 yards as a reception because he was injured. So then you go into this 1,400-yard season. Okay, I get it. I'm all for you getting paid. But at the same time, you got to realize that from a business perspective, injury prone, you only had one all-pro season. Go prove it again. You got to compare yourself to Devontae Adams.
Do you think the Niners said that to him? Do you think the Niners in the negotiation were like, hey, we're lowballing you because this is a very small sample size and therefore we either want to get in at this price or have you go do it again? Do you think they used that in negotiations when they were dealing with him?
They had. It's no way. That's why it kind of hit him sideways. Like, well, I was the offense. But we're looking at it. You got to look at it from Kyle. I know you the offense, but how many times have I took a person and made them good in our system? You got to look at it from Deebo's perspective. If you leave, that don't mean you're going to a better situation.
No, most likely he's going to a worse situation. Like there are very few teams out there that are going to be willing to give up what it's going to take to get Deebo that are good teams right now.
And pay him, Rob. You got to
They got to give up a ransom and then set the market.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to look at it from the numbers perspective. If I trade for this man, now I have to extend him. So does he fit in my offense? Does he fit? Will he be able to be a wide back like he claims himself to be? Or am I getting a receiver? And see, when a lot of fans was comparing Deebo to, well, he's just like Devontae Adams. He's not like Devontae Adams.
He is not. He's not. I love Deebo, but he's a different man than Devontae Adams.
He's not a Devontae Adams, a Stephon Diggs. Christian Kirk got overpaid. We all know that.
Oh, yes. Badly overpaid.
But everybody gets overpaid when you're trying to get a free agent.
Especially when you're going to the Jaguars. They got to overpay to get players on their team.
Rob, look at the statistics. The Jaguars spend the most money on free agents.
Yep.
So I wasn't shocked that Christian Kirk got that. But at the same time, that's a reach for them.
Yeah, a big reach. So, it shouldn't have impacted the market the way it did. I think the other deals played a bigger part in it, but that was sort of the first snowball that began to roll downhill.
Exactly. So now you look at that and you're looking at Deebo like, okay, so you want 30 million? All right, you know, he called me off guard. All right, we'll give you, I would go for 22 million. But then I got to do it incentive based because you're injury prone. I was like, think about it. When he was kept his reception for 1,400 yards, when he was a receiver, we weren't winning like that. When we moved him to running back, we started winning because
he was on track for a phenomenal season. He was on track for like 1,700 yards receiving, but the Niners were not winning in the same way that they were once they switched him to wideback.
And it all results back to what Williams said. It's Jimmy G. Jimmy G is a mediocre quarterback who cannot really produce certain drives in certain parts of games. So you need somebody that's explosive like a Deebo that you could use on a screen. You can use on an end around, stuff like that to spark your offense.
Kittle, I agree. He's a perfect complement for Jimmy G. The two of them paired up together was phenomenal.
And it worked out. But now look at a good example. Look at Kittle. Kittle took a pay cut. Because what are they using Kittle for? Blocking majority. His numbers have dropped. he is not. They're not throwing the ball as much to him. They use him more as a blocker. And
They
on
are.
them blocking plays, who is he blocking for? Elijah Mitchell, Deebo.
Yeah.
So that's why
that move blocking that Kittle does. By the way, this super chat has been here a little while. I'm not a self-promoter. I mean, I am, but Joey Mellons just came in to say you the man, Rob. So I had to throw it up there. I had to get that super chat in there. But yeah, I agree with you that that was a complimentary pairing of Deebo and Jimmy G.
He makes Jimmy G. What a lot of us fans are mad about with Jimmy is he didn't get better. So Cal has to find ways to limit his mistakes, but at the same time, use players to make the offense explosive. Mostert.
Yeah.
That's why Mostert was so good. We had to run the ball heavily to open up the offense. But then you get into the Super Bowl, you stop running Mostert.
Right.
You started Tevin Coleman. Mostert had just broke the record in playoff history for most rushing yards and touchdowns. But like I said, it all results back to what? The quarterback. If you have a good quarterback, your production for Deebo might not be the same. He might just be a receiver, not a running back. And
Right.
I don't feel as though he should be a running back. I like him at receiver, at slot. I like a nickel back or a linebacker or a safety have to come down to check him because that
That's
could be a
huge
mismatch.
mismatch.
So I don't want to see him at running back. That's what you pay running backs for. If you're a running back,
tend to
run the
agree.
ball. If you're a receiver, catch the ball.
I would want him to be used very sparingly there. Like, I'm cool with it if it's, a play here and there, right? You're in a big game, you need a spark, and then you turn to Deebo as a wide back in that scenario. I'm okay with that. But I think in general, he should be used more as a wide receiver because you're investing that level of money in him. You don't want to put him in a situation where he's likely to get injured.
Exactly. And I don't want to see him get injured because he is a explosive athlete.
Yes, he is very explosive.
And with Trey coming in to start, it might help our offense to where we don't have to overuse him.
Yeah.
We don't have to overuse Elijah Mitchell. Kittle doesn't have to always get a hospital ball when he goes after the ball. Like, it's a lot of things. Ayuk's not frustrated because he's wide open on the side, but Jimmy didn't see him.
Right.
Like, it's a lot of things result back to Jimmy.
That is true. That is most definitely true. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time for the roundtable. I got one more down in the waiting room with Bullpup 33, but did you have any last thoughts before we go on? This has been a phenomenal call so far. Didn't want to cut it short, but got to get to Bullpup 33 to close out the show, but wanted to give you a last thought.
Last thought would be that I need fans to look at it don't look at it in a personal way.
Okay. I like
look
that.
at it from a perspective of if we can pay him, we'll try to pay him.
Yes.
If we have to trade him, whatever we get for him, make sure it's used to make our offense and our defense better.
It sounds like what you're saying is less emotion, more logic to this situation.
You got to use logic in anything that you do when it comes to football. I currently play flag football, so I use logic in how I scheme, whether it be on defense or offense. So you got to use logic when it comes to this trade. Whoever you trade to, it has to be a team that wants to pay the ransom, two wants to extend him. And whatever picks we get, are we using it to replace Deebo with another receiver in the draft? And the other pick that we get, are we using it for an offensive line or a key piece that we have a hole in? And majority is offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line, maybe safety, maybe speed wide receiver. Like there are definitely some needs that we can fill with these assets in return. I agree. It'll be hard for me to get past the emotion of this one because I am very attached to Deebo because of what he brought to the team. And if it were to happen, which I hope it doesn't, I hope the Niners get this deal done. If it does happen, I will quickly move on to the logic of, all right, what did we get in return? How are we going to build this thing back up? Because eventually it is all about the team. I do wear the team jersey. I support Deebo. He's on my phone on the screen there, but I am a Niner fan first and foremost.
And you will always be a Niner fan for life.
Right.
So even though players come and go, you're still a Niner fan, no matter what. So whatever happens, if a player leaves, I was mad when Frank Gore left.
Yes.
I was mad when DeForest Buckner left.
Yep.
But it happens. It's the way of the game.
I mean, Jerry Rice and Joe Montana ended their careers elsewhere. So ain't nothing permanent in the NFL.
Nothing's etched in stone no more.
That's
the
right.
way the
That's
league is.
right. That Niner Empire DMV, this has been a phenomenal call. I really appreciate you calling in.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Absolutely.
me.
I hope to talk to you again soon.
Okay, I'll be on it next week.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bringing in the final caller of the day, Bullpup 33. Just going to throw in Chris with the super chat. He said no offer, meaning Deebo. Maybe they said do it again. Maybe the Niners did want to see more. Again, we're speculating at that point. It certainly could be a possibility. The only thing we know for sure is they were attempting to negotiate, and those negotiations went south, and Deebo took pretty significant offense to whatever it was that was said. And so you can fill in the blanks from there is really what I'm saying. Those are the facts. Those are the facts that we know. Everything else becomes speculation. Bringing in Bullpup 33. How you doing, Bullpup?
Rob, how are you?
I am doing well, doing well. I wish that we weren't talking about one of my favorite players for the Niners being potentially traded, but that's where we are.
You know, it's so sad, but before all the sad stuff, I just want to say congratulations on an absolute fantastic show today. You knocked it out of the park. All the phone calls have been number one, crisp, clean, sound logic from everyone. You know, even though it's a very emotional situation, but you know, all the callers have been right. It just depends on.
I really do. I agree. I think that there has been a lot of logic. I guess I'm a little surprised in that I kind of expected some vitriol, right? A little bit of emotion, a little bit of bad taste in people's mouths. And I'm very pleased that that's not the direction that this went. It has come out very logical. Hey, this is disappointing. Yes, we would like Deebo to stay. Yes, we want the team to work it out. And if it doesn't, here's the hope for what we get in replacement.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather, if I want a Deebo in uniform, but I want a happy Deebo in uniform.
Yes, yes.
That's the key right there.
It really is.
If he stays, I don't want him to be on the campus because the team has a negotiation leverage over him and he's going to be unhappy. That's not going to work out.
You don't want a scenario where the team is exerting their control. Deebo is forced to be there, but he's unhappy, and that's screwing with the entire team dynamic. Is that what you're saying?
That very well could. That is a possibility, unfortunately.
I totally agree. I think, to me, the deadline becomes this time next week. If you're going to move him, if you feel you cannot get a deal done, you need a first-round pick in this year's draft.
So think of your favorite 3 or 4 players in this draft.
Yep.
Would you be happy it'd help you, put a little bit of sugar in that medicine if we do have to trade Deebo and it turns out we get those 3 or 4 guys?
It would definitely help me get over it. I think I would still be saddened at the loss of Deebo. I believe he is one of one. I don't think you can replace him. And there are a lot of players that I'm pretty fond of in this draft. With the picks we currently have, the Niners cannot get all of those players. With the picks we should be able to get in return for Deebo, we could get most of those players that I have a draft crush on. And so while I would still be sad to lose Deebo, if the 49ers followed my certified, guaranteed successful plan course of action in drafting the players that I have crushes on, it would help ease the burden a little bit.
So everyone thought back in the day, most of us don't remember, but I remember back in the day, everyone thought that Dallas was crazy for trading Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker, right.
Herschel Walker was the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. He was that offense, right?
Literally, he was the Dallas Cowboys. Everyone thought that they were dumb. And all I got to say is 3 Super Bowls later, I think they won that trade.
Yes, they did. In fact, they won it so much so that now when you look back, you point to it and you say, well, of course Dallas won. Like, there's no question Dallas won that trade. And any team that gives up that amount of assets for a single player is probably going to lose that trade. Like, it changed the narrative of, is it more important to have the one super all-star or to build out the entirety of the team? I think that trade marks a point in NFL history.
If we can pull something like that, I'll say, Deebo, much respect. Good luck to you. I appreciate everything you did for us. But if we get like a big haul like that, I'd say do it.
Would you consider what the Chiefs got for Tyreek Hill to be enough? That was a 1, 2, and a 4 this year, and a 4 and a 6 next year.
Absolutely. I'd take that.
Yeah.
I'd take that because, it depends on if it's a high one. I'm saying trade down.
The one is the key to the deal, because where it is in the first round depends greatly on its value.
Even if we get a high one, like let's say number 10, like the Jets, or 7 or whatever, something up there, trade down.
Yeah.
The meat of this draft is between the lower end of round 1, through round 3. That's where the meat of this draft is.
Absolutely. The vast majority of the players that I covet are in between, I would say, in between about 40 and 120. That's the sweet spot to me. And I would much rather have 4 or 5 picks in that range than to have 1 pick early on. The only player that I do covet that, because I haven't been mocking the first rounds, I'm unclear on, would be in attempting to bring in a wide receiver from early in the first round, like a Drake London. That would be something where you may need a higher pick than what I'm accounting for. But otherwise, I would rather have the glut of picks in late in round 1 and then 2 and 3.
Absolutely. But, if we are going to keep Deebo, let's make him a happy Deebo.
He doesn't. It doesn't fit his playing style if he's not. Deebo absolutely needs to be content and needs to be hungry in order to play the way in which he played last year. That was an impassioned Deebo. That was a Deebo inspired. And if you get a half-assed Deebo, that's not the same player.
No, not even close. And to close it out, I guess this is my sticking point that I've been, referring to for quite some time is, and you agreed with me, but for some reason, we just haven't really addressed it.
Yeah.
We need to replace Mostert.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Everyone's talking about Jimmy G. I agree. I mean, he had his limitations, but the fact that we don't have a horse like Mostert is what really stopped us, what forced Deebo to go in there and take that role.
I think that's an astute observation. I do believe that Mostert unlocks that offense. I am not entirely sure that I see the next Mostert. That's where I struggle, is how do you replace a guy that sort of was that unicorn type of player with his speed? But I do believe that when you find a player like that, if you find a player like that, it unlocks Kyle Shanahan's offense in a way that without it, you just don't get that type of production from Kyle Shanahan's offense.
And Kyle's offense is a run-first offense.
Yes, it is. His father's was before him, and his certainly is as well. Bullpup, this has been a phenomenal call. I got to jump off. I got a hard out at 6:30, but I truly appreciate you coming in and sharing your insights and questions today.
Sounds good, man. Take care.
Hey, you too. Pleasure having you on. All right, bringing in the last super chat. Chris Royal on his way out said, great show, Rob. Got family over. Got to jump out. See you next week for the draft, my guy. Chris, I will see you in Las Vegas. Yes, I will be there next week. I will be on the channel tomorrow with Jack Hammer, and I will be on with Grant Cohn on his channel as well. Bryant Culp coming in to say, great show. I fully agree with that, Bryant. All right, you guys know the drill. Be back tomorrow, but until then, cheers, Niner faithful.